everyone, and welcome back to Empowering You. Guys, today we have a wonderful guest. We have the former producer and senior director of WWE. Yes, WWE, Mr. Steve Rubin. How are you?
I'm great tonight, Latasha. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your time. I know, you have a crazy schedule, so thank you for coming and being part of the show. We really love having you here today. Um, yeah, so let's just, get right into it. One, I know everyone is just wanting to know, one, how you are doing and, how you handled your layoff because that was a big shocker and that was sad for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we can start from the beginning. I was with WWE for 26 years,
Mhm.
right out of college. Uh, I started in our TV production studio in 1998. I started as a production assistant, making copies and getting coffees and writing bumpers and editing 30-second slams of the week and logging on cameras for our studio shows and doing all the things that a production assistant would do. I I got uh, promoted to from there to senior associate producer and associate producer, associate producer first, then senior associate producer, and then in February of 2000 is when I started on the road with WWE as a floor manager, stage manager type. I worked ringside with our announcers for a lot of years, providing them with all the copy they need for sponsorships. Getting them anything they needed for a TV production. I was their stage manager ringside, so I was ringside with WWE Hall of Famers Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler and Michael Cole and all the current, announcers as part of the show. When you're ringside, you're actually part of the show. So there were times when wrestlers would be fighting, 2 inches from in front of me, and they would say, they would throw me off of my steel chair to use it to hit somebody, and we would know these things were coming, but you're still part of the show. You're when you're down ringside, you're part of the show. So and it's fun. It's crazy. It's intense. It's all the things you think it would be when you're in that environment. In August of 2001 is when I transitioned to what my job would be going forward for the next 23 years, which was director of TV event relations and then senior director of TV event relations. And what that entailed was I was the main liaison between our WWE broadcast team, our WWE live event production team. So in the arena, pyrotechnics, lighting, rigging, sound, all the different concert elements that WWE would do for their live event production inside the actual arena. Our WWE live event marketing teams and venue. So basically being the bridge between all of those different entities, making sure all those different entities were all on the same page all the time with anything that we were doing for all of our televised live events all over the world for 52 weeks a year. WWE had no off season. So we were live twice a week, 52 weeks a year. So I was on the road for 140, 150 days a year, events a year. Um, and uh, that was my job going forward for 20 plus years. And I loved it. I loved my actual job itself. What I didn't love was the uh, effect that all that travel would have on every other part of my life.
Right.
Um, so, uh, you know, the when in May of 2024, I got laid off, and that's where I am now. WWE had a corporate merger with Endeavor, and it got packaged with UFC is part of TKO Holdings, and that was one big company. And just like with every other corporate merger these days, there are casualties, and I was one of them. So um, I had a tremendous run. I have no hard feelings to the company at all, and I am in the process of developing what's the next part of my life. Um, so we can talk about, how I handled the emotions of being laid off, and we can talk about, uh, all the different things that occur mentally, physically, emotionally when you're on the road.
Yeah.
So
And
I have no issues with that. So please fire
yes.
away.
Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I would love to know. I mean, just in general, like one getting having a job at that magnitude and being doing that many different tasks and being away from your family, right? And working that long, that has to be extremely stressful and very like draining and has to take a toll on your mental health, right? So how when you're on the road, how do you deal? Like what is it that what's your coping mechanism and how do all of you guys process and deal with that stuff?
So there are a lot of different answers to that. The first is when you love what you do, and you have a passion for it, it makes it a lot easier, obviously. Yes, there are environmental stressors, no doubt about it. And so, to give you a little bit of background, for the most part uh, of my time with WWE, our schedule was pretty consistent. It was a lot, but it was consistent. So on weeks that we would just do a normal Monday Night Raw and a SmackDown for the first like 15 years of that, 20 years of it, we were leaving on Sunday. We would do a live Monday Night Raw on Monday night. We would travel overnight to the next city. So whether you're finishing a show at 11 o'clock, you're getting in a car or on a tour bus at midnight, and you're driving 200 miles ish to the next city to do to tape Friday Night SmackDown on Tuesday. That would air either Thursday or Friday at that time, and on Wednesday you're flying home. So you have tight turnarounds. You have interesting travel. Depending on weather or what. Sometimes it would be the difference between a Monday and a Tuesday. We'd try to keep it within 200-ish miles. Sometimes it would be shorter. Sometimes it would be 300-ish miles. Couldn't really do more than 300 miles because then you're running into timing issues. But with the time you're getting trucks there, the time that you would need to start setting up in order to be ready for the next show. But for the most part, we're doing, between 150 to 300 miles in between. So you're getting into a hotel at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You're getting 3, 4 hours of sleep, and then you're up in the building for the next day on that Tuesday at 8 a.m. to get to do another full, 16-hour day. And then Wednesday, you're taking that first flight home to get home, right? At that time, then we would be home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we'd have a few days at home in a row. On days, weeks that we would have a pay-per-view that would stretch out a little bit. The last 5 years, when WWE switched from USA Network to Fox, that was in like 2020. It was like about 5 years ago. And so Fox wanted to have SmackDown live on Friday nights. So we were doing a live Monday, a live Friday. So our travel schedule then became a little bit more intense because we were flying out Sunday, doing a show Monday, flying home Tuesday. Wednesday would be the only day of my week that I would wake up and go to bed in my bed at home, right? Thursday we would travel for the Friday show. then do the Friday show, travel home Saturday, and then rinse and repeat. If we were to do a pay-per-view or a premium live event, as we began to call them later on, then we would do a leave Thursday, show Friday, travel overnight to do a show Saturday for that pay-per-view, travel Sunday to the Monday Night Raw city, and then do Monday Night Raw live and fly home Tuesday. And then if you're doing a stadium show or a bigger show or an international show, then you're on the road for like 10 or 12 days at a time. So it's intense and it's physically draining because you're getting very little sleep sometimes. You're getting doing tight turnarounds. And so when you're tired is when your mental health starts to suffer. So and you start to get short tempered a little bit and you start to get irritable and you're not getting your workouts in maybe, so you're feeling a little bit lethargic, uh and you don't always control what you eat, so we would have caterers that travel with us that would do great job catering for us, but you're catering for 300 people, so not everybody has the same taste. So you got to do a little bit that appeals to everybody.
Mhm.
So you could bit and piece and put together a healthier meal if you wanted to, but there were also the temptations of the cookies and the donuts and the cakes and all that stuff. And when you're tired and you just need that quick sugar fix and your willpower is down because you're tired, so then you're starting to eat the crap,
Right.
because it's quick and it's a dopamine hit, so it makes you feel better. So um, all these things are part and parcel to the how your mental health could suffer on the road. Plus, you're in a high pressure situation. Your live TV is not for the faint of heart. So you're live on the air for 3 hours, and it's intense all the way around. You're on a headset. If you make a mistake, your producer is gonna light you up
Yeah.
most times, uh, and you need to have a thick skin to be able to absorb it and do your job and move on to the next thing, as opposed to getting a tongue lashing and then and cowering in the corner and pulling your hair out. So all these things are part and parcel to the mental health aspect of being on the road, and especially being at a live TV show happening all at the same time. So how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
Is your question? Uh, it takes a while to figure out what your specific coping mechanism is going to be. Um, for me, it was always number one, exercise as much as I could. Number two, your road crew becomes your road family. So you need to have that support system out on the road. Um, if you don't have that, and in your road crew, the chemistry is extremely fragile. And we did a really, really good job of assessing right away when somebody didn't fit in. If they didn't fit in and they were going to be a cancer to our chemistry that was out on the road, they didn't last long. And that's a major part of it. You have to be able to trust, number one, get along with, and be able to depend on the people that you're on the road with all the time, that in case of emergency, they're going to have your back. And that was really, really, really important with our crew at WWE. Your road crew becomes your road family because you're spending more time with them than you are with your actual family, 99% of the time. So when you don't have that right chemistry and you don't have that trust and you don't have that camaraderie, is when it becomes really difficult.
Um, is there a certain show, whether it be one that was taped or one that was live, that you can remember or that really sticks out to you? That was like one of the either we'll go with both. Like the funnest show that you did, or the most stressful show that you have done.
Well, they usually are the same thing. Usually, the most stressful ones become the most fun because you're, at least for me, because I'm number one, I'm a sadist. I like it when uh, I'd rather be busy and when you throw a curveball at me,
Yeah.
then and then that it challenges me and I can get it done and I could solve those problems and I can think outside the box and pull a rabbit out of my hat,
Hmm.
which you have to do every now and then. Uh, I sadistically enjoy that. You know, for me, I'd rather do that than then have a boring day and have it be uh,
The same thing.
formula.
Yeah.
So, um, I mean, what can I think of one specific show? I mean, there's a million of them. Um, those were usually the days that we would do like the crazy, stupid stunts that we used to do every now and then. We drove. There was one time where we had a guy drive an old-fashioned milk truck into the arena. Kurt Angle. He was an Olympic gold medalist. He was kind of like he was a good guy in wrestling terms. Baby face.
Mhm.
Baby face would be good guy. Heel would be a bad guy. To school your audience on wrestling terminology. Uh, so he was a baby face and he was a Olympic gold medalist, kind of like the All American, just rah rah good guy. And he drove a milk truck into the like an old school 1950s milk truck into the arena in Sacramento, California. Number one, we had to locate that milk truck for him, which wasn't easily to do. We had about a couple days to do that. That wasn't a last minute thing, you know. Um, and we had to figure out how we were going to do that, how we were going to get the truck in the building, clear it with fire marshal, and then he was supposed to be able to pull a hose out and spray who was ever in the ring with milk. And obviously, the milk truck itself didn't have the tank or mechanism for that, so we had to figure out how we were going to do that and be able to uh, make it look like it was coming out of the actual truck itself. So those types of things are where it's really fun, and um, but they're also extremely stressful because
Hmm.
you're pulling a rabbit out of your hat or you're doing the things that are the not normal day-to-day operations of the show.
Yeah, I remember. I believe it was the Undertaker came in on a motorcycle.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that was. Yeah, listen, I know that it's all a character, but that guy always, him and Kane always gave me the creeps all the time.
And in real life, two of the greatest guys in the world.
Oh, I bet so. But yeah, they like the way the Undertaker with his eyes, whew,
Hmm.
all the time give me the creeps. So yeah, I'm sure those were the stressful ones, but those were the fun times for you, right? Like fine, and like because I'm guessing that when you went to these different towns, like you probably when you first went there did not have like go to places. You had to find these
Hmm.
places.
Hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, and initially, yeah, and you figure out really quickly, like the process of how to pull that rabbit out of your hat. Like the first thing you would do, so the first thing we would always go to is we would have a local production runner or a production assistant, who we would hire locally that knew the area. And if we needed something like if we needed something from a specific store, they would know where to get it. Or if they had we would, if we need to have laundry done, they had their laundry guy that they go to all the time that could turn stuff around really quickly. Or, they knew the best restaurants to go to. So you always hire somebody locally who kind of just knew the area. So we would go right to them first. Hey, I need this. Do you have somebody or do you have a connection? Do you know somebody in the area that can help us get this really quickly and like turn it around in a couple hours? And if not, then you go to the venue. The venue's got contacts, and so there becomes you figure out the process of how to potentially do these things. Um, and it doesn't always work, because sometimes it's last minute or sometimes it's not, and you have to go to the next step in your sequence. So, um, yeah, and then as you go back to these same cities, we would keep notes. Okay, this is where we got this the last time, so I'm going to keep record of you know that these people were friends of the show, were fans, and they were gracious and wanted to help us with the production. So they're a good person to go to in case
Mm.
we need something else the next time. Or I would then give them tickets to the next show, and I would keep them kind of happy and like keep them in the back pocket for things in case something came up. And develop those relationships as you're going up and back to these same cities over and over and over again.
Yeah. Um, so for our audience that has family members who are at home while their loved ones are on the road working, like you did, how did your family manage that? Like, I'm sure that was stressful for them,
Mhm.
right? Especially, your wife, because even though she was not a single parent, that she had to play the role as a single parent a lot, I'm sure. And your children not seeing you, right? Um, how did they handle that? And what are some tips that you could give the audience on how to support each other and make, still show up and make sure each
Mhm.
other knows their support and loved and there.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it's difficult. You have to work at it. Number one. Number two, it from a emotional standpoint for my kids. I have an 18-year-old son and I have a 15-year-old son. So they grew up in this situation. They never really knew any different. So it was so. Uh, I had my son when I was on the road. I was actually packing to leave for a trip when my wife went into labor and she starts having contractions in our house and I'm still packing and she's like, "Where the fuck do you think you're going?" I'm having yeah. Oh, I got to get ready. If this is false labor, I got to go on the road. So
You're
she's
getting
like,
later on.
"You're not going anywhere." We were actually in New York at that time, and I was supposed to drive down to Atlantic City, which is like a 90-minute, an hour and a half, 90-mile drive. Uh, and she's like, "Where do you think you're going?" We're going to the hospital. I got to be ready to go in case this is, false labor or something. Uh, so, uh, that being said, my kids have never known, anything different. So, yes, there were times when your road schedule would be less, and there were times where it would be more intense, and they would see me, less or more. It really helped specifically that my kids were fans of WWE and they've always been fans of the WWE. So dad has got like the coolest job in the world. And when our shows were in Atlanta, where we live now, they would come and they would go backstage and they would have dinner with me and they would hang out and they would meet all the wrestlers and like all the wrestlers knew them and they was so it became dad had a really cool job. So, it's not like I'm going on the road to sell encyclopedias. I'm, uh, you know,
Get your hands on a few.
I'm going on the road to work for WWE. And like all
Mhm.
their friends thought I had the coolest job in the world, and they would bring their friends to the shows. And, uh, so it's very, very much a family company. So my kids would come backstage and everybody knew them. And my wife would come backstage and everybody knew her and we all knew each other's families, even you know not just the crew, the wrestlers as well. So my kids would come backstage and like John Cena would come right up to them and be like, "Hey guys, I didn't know you were coming today." Like I'm walking them into the arena and they're not paying attention, and John Cena comes off of his tour bus and he goes up to them, like they don't even see him yet, and he's goes to say hello to them before they see him. And my kids are just like, "Oh, hey, John." Like it was like no big deal to them. And I'm like, "What? This is not normal."
What?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so they had been backstage so many times and met so many of the guys that it was just normal to them. It's that family aspect of it. So that being said, my kids, it helped that my kids thought that I had the coolest job in the world. Uh, so but yes, it still does take a toll when you're not here for their birthdays or you're not there for the first day of school. I don't think I was ever saw my kids get on the bus for a first day of school until last year.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so um, and you're working every holiday. Not
Yeah.
except for Christmas or New Year's, but every Fourth of July. If the Fourth of July is on a Monday or Tuesday, I'm working. And or Labor Day. Obviously, Labor Day is always a Monday. Memorial Day is always a Monday. A lot of times, Father's Day for me, Mother's Day for my wife. If we had a show, I was working, and we would celebrate those occasions, but or the day before, or the day after, or if it was their birthday, we would celebrate it like a day before. So we always made sure that they had those experiences and I was present, you know, when I was home. So, and they understood that, dad has got to go to work. So we're celebrating my birthday 2 days before, but we would always celebrate it and we would always make sure that those things were taken care of.
I mean, did they
Um,
ever get like their favorite wrestler to appear at their birthday party? Was that like a, hey, since Dad wasn't here, I got him for you?
well, or I would get like the wrestlers to do like a little video for them and we would play it for them. So at my younger son, um, he's 15 now. His bar mitzvah was 2 years ago, and he at the time he was a big Arrow fan, Green Arrow, the show. So uh, Stephen Amell plays the Arrow Green Arrow on that show, and he's a big WWE fan, and he had been on our show for I don't know, God knows how many times. So like a couple of weeks before my son's bar mitzvah, I reach out to our PR people and I'm like, hey, can you connect me to him? I want to have it's Shane's bar mitzvah's coming up. I want to surprise him and have Stephen Amell do like a little video to play at his bar mitzvah, like at the party. And we got that done. So yeah, so on the video screens at my son's bar mitzvah, he didn't know what was happening. We started playing this video clip from Stephen Amell, and again, my dad's got the coolest job in the world. Uh,
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. Like, if I'd be like, oh, guys, guess what? I think I could have that hookup. If that was my dad, I'd be like, guys, look what my dad does. Do you know my dad works with The Rock? Does your dad?
yeah, yeah. Your dad, yeah. My dad knows The Rock. My dad knows, John Cena. My dad knows all these guys. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
John
yeah,
Cena.
it doesn't hurt, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you're not physically there. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
and my wife, we would call home every day, and I'd speak to the kids every day, and uh, it's interesting. So when I mentioned before how the schedule changed, and I was on the road more. But so when that first happened, I sat my kids down and I talked to them, and I'm like, "Hey, how are you guys handling this new schedule that I'm on the road? I'm traveling more." And they're like, "Well, Dad, yeah, you're traveling more, but your trips are shorter, so you're moving around more, but it's less time that you're not." This time consecutively that you're not at home. So we're okay with it. And I'm like, and they both said that. I'm like, well, it's number one, shows a lot of maturity.
yeah,
And number two, I completely got floored because I didn't think that they saw it that way. So, it just goes to show you that there's always two perspectives on everything, or at least more than one, one or two perspectives on everything.
yes,
So,
yes,
we had that. It's important to have that line of communication with your loved ones, and it's important to be present, when you're at home. So when I was at home, I was at home. I
Mhm.
wasn't leaving to go to an office. I would work from home, and we would have dinner whenever we could together, and I would do the cooking, and I would still, I would try to pick them up from school or drive them around if I could, or we would, I would be at their games if I could, if I was there, and you just try to be present when you're at home in that situation.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if if you'll share this or not, but was there a favorite wrestler in your household, or was all of them your favorite?
Me personally, or my kids?
Your kids, your wife. Was there one that you guys, go back and forth about, or
Hmm.
was there just not a favorite one?
Uh, well, I mean, obviously, I grew up in the 80s.
Hmm.
So I grew up a WWE fan for, you know, all my childhood. And as we're talking this week, it was a hard week because Hulk Hogan passed
Yes,
away. So
yes, that was rough.
this week has been a rough week for the kids of the 80s with Malcolm Jamal Warner passing away, and then Ozzy Osbourne, and then Hulk Hogan. It's crazy how famous people die in threes.
Freeze. Yeah,
Yeah. So
I think that's
and we
all
didn't,
death though.
what's that?
I think that's all deaths though. Like every time I see a death, it's always three. Like it's always goes in threes.
Especially with celebrities,
That's
right?
yes, yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
so growing up, my favorite, I was a Hulk Hogan fan, just like everybody else was, but my favorite was Roddy Piper. Uh,
Oh, okay.
so because I always gravitated towards the bad guys, which probably shows you a lot about my character. Um, so he was my favorite growing up. So as as I started to work for the company, uh, I didn't have a favorite,
Yeah.
because they were colleagues as opposed to just, you know, do you appreciate the ones who are really good at their craft versus the ones that are just good, as opposed or the ones that are, the goats versus the ones that are just good? Yes. Um, I'm not going to go into that. Politically, I don't want to go into that, but my kids, uh, my younger one likes Cody Rhodes. Uh,
Oh yeah. My son
yeah.
loves him. Yeah.
Um, and again, just a quality human being. Uh, the older one, he's a bigger wrestling fan. I don't know who his favorite is right now. And he likes everybody. He likes them all. Um, I don't know. We never discussed who his favorite would be at this point.
Oh,
Um, and my wife, yeah, she just tolerates it, I think.
yeah. I mean, the fact that they were just unbothered about John Cena, like that would be John Cena. Okay. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed that they were
Desensitized. I don't know if I would use the word unbothered. Desensitized.
it's like, oh, hey,
Yeah,
John, how are you?
it's just old hat to them. It was just old hat to them at that point, right?
Right. I mean, I will say the character that he's doing now, like the bad guy, I'm not a fan of that. I don't like it. I like the other John Cena, the nice guy, the yeah, that guy.
The
Not
baby face, you'd say.
yeah, not this guy. This guy is not John Cena. I don't know what's happening, but whatever. Um, anyways, if there was something that you could go back and tell yourself, right? You're a younger you. What would that be?
It's a good question. Um, I guess from a mental health way I think about things perspective, I would try to teach my younger self perspective. So, unfortunately, the way I think of things is right. I believe that things happen for a reason. Number one, and they happen when they happen for a reason. And unfortunately, it takes something bad happen for most of us in our lives in order for us to gain perspective on what's really important. And you can't learn that perspective really unless you have something bad happen to you in your life. I'll tell you a personal story, and this goes to the familial nature of the WWE and really shines it on that. So I told you we have two kids. Uh, my wife and I were pregnant for our older son, and we had to terminate that pregnancy.
I'm sorry.
Uh, and we find out that we have to terminate the pregnancy, and I'm supposed to go on the road. And for a longer run, for a pay-per-view run, so leave Friday, set day Saturday, show Sunday, show Monday, show Tuesday, and we find out that we have to have surgery to terminate a pregnancy. And I call my boss at WWE and I said, I don't care. I'm not going on the road. I can't leave my wife right now.
Yeah.
And I tell them what's happening, and they're like, absolutely, no issue. You know, you're not going on the road. Don't go. You need to be with your family. And you know, everybody. Unfortunately, if you're on the road long enough, you're going to have that type of situation.
Yeah.
Um, so for me at that time, I was 26. No, I'm sorry, I was 30. Sorry, and because of that situation, you learn what's important and what's not important. And yeah, our jobs are our, they're our, ways of making a living, and they provide for our family. And for the most part, most of us, you know, yeah, there's high stress and there's a lot of money involved, and it's your livelihood. But at the end of the day, for the most of us, we're not curing cancer here. We're not, you were a first responder. I'm not, you know, uh, I'm not a doctor. I don't have, I don't have somebody dying on my table, on a daily basis. My job at WWE was to entertain people and to bring joy to them and put smiles on their faces. And so it takes that perspective of something bad to happen for you to be able to understand that, I think. Really understand it. And to really understand what's important in life and what's really not important in life. So if I could go back and teach my younger self that before the bad things happen, that would be that would be great. I mean, that would be you're ahead of the game at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if I were to tell somebody who's younger that same story and that same thing, are they going to get it to the same degree as if it were to happen to them? I don't know. Uh, but if I could go back and tell my younger self that and say, listen, hey, yeah, why are you stressing out over uh, a TV show? Over, it's wrestling. It's not nuclear war here. You don't have your finger on the red button. You're not making those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, uh, and when I got laid off, it was the same thing. I was like, okay, yeah, I got laid off. I have to figure out how I'm going to feed my family and how to pay for our house. I got a severance package, of course, when I got laid off, and it lasted for a while. And so we had that security, and we done pretty well over the years in terms of saving and whatnot. So financially, we don't have that stress. A lot of people do, but we're in a better financial situation than some people are. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's not it's not a cancer sentence. You know, it's not, you can just get diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Hmm.
You know, so there are way bigger problems that other people have than what you're dealing with right now.
Yes, and I love the way that you shared all that. I hate what you experienced, and that's very unfortunate. I'm sorry, but I love how you approached that, how you looked at that, and how you learned, um, and how you moved with that. Going forward.
You know, and unfortunately, most of us don't have that perspective while it's happening to them. You know,
No, yeah,
and you just can't. You know, but
no,
you know, once you get past that, you know, hurdle, and you know, if you can look back at it and grow from it, and you know, take those experiences, and you know, yeah, they become part of you, and they become part of who you are, and you incorporate them into your way of being and dealing with people and leading and being a leader in your job or in your life. uh, then you know it happens for a reason.
right,
Yeah.
right, and that's, I mean, again, in the moment when people are going through things, you're not thinking to yourself, okay, this is happening for a reason, right? Like that's definitely not something that people are
Mhm.
thinking. But once you get through it, like you said, and you start, growing, and then you keep moving on through your journey, you're able to look back years, and realize, okay, things did happen for a reason. You know what I mean? And this is, um, but yeah, during that time, it's hard. It's hard, and but it's good to see people, have a different perspective and see it on the other side. That's
And, you know, I'm not super religious, but I do believe in the higher power, in a higher power. And, you know, again, I believe that things happen for a reason. They happen when they happen for a reason, and they happen to they happen they happen to. Right? Like, I'm not saying that right. They happen to the people that they happen to for a reason. So, you know, I like to believe that God, you know, makes things happen to me because he knows that I can handle them,
yes,
as
I
opposed
agree.
to somebody else who may not be able to, you know.
Right.
So I don't know if I said that eloquently,
No,
but
I
uh,
understand, and I understand what you're meaning. Like, I believe God gives his battles to his strongest warriors, and he knows what battles he's giving them.
there you
And
go. That's a better way of a much better way of saying it.
I mean, I don't know that that's a better way, but that's just how I look at things. You know what I mean? So when I'm in the middle of a battle, and I'm trying to figure it out, and how am I going to deal with this, and or why is this happening? You know what I mean? I As
Yeah,
hard as it is,
well,
and maybe not during that day, I try to remind myself, like, God gave me this, or God is putting me through this, or God is doing this. Like, there's a reason and there's a lesson. What is it? Like, I have to figure this out, and sometimes that is me picking up my Bible and looking at, I mean, but that's how I, sometimes have to get myself through things. But that's my,
you know,
you know,
instead of saying why me, you know, I say why not me.
yeah,
You know,
that's a
and,
good point.
and
Yes.
you know, so or I try to say why not me. You know, uh, we're all just works in progress, and if you're
Yes, we
not a
are.
work in progress, then you're dead. You know, you're dying at that point. You know, we
Yes.
all need to learn and grow every single day, and when you
Yes.
stop learning and growing, that's when you die. So
Yes. Yes.
you
And that
know,
is why my show is so, what to me is so important, because people are, out there, especially at the younger age, they're committing suicide. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much suicide happening, and then there's so much different things happening, like in the mental health, and so much, things not people not understanding, and so much judgment, and and people thinking that some people that live a certain life don't have any worries or no stressors, or some people that have this life don't have any like problems happening in their world. And so when I started the show, and I was when a network came to me and was talking to me about things, I said I want it to be open all across. Like I don't want just one path. I don't want just nurses or doctors or waitresses or football players or entertainers. I want everyone, because everyone from all walks of life struggle different ways, and I want everyone to see that, because I feel like everyone thinks certain people don't struggle, you know what I mean? And I don't want that. I don't want
And
anyone to feel alone, and I don't want anyone to think that because people live one certain life, they don't have any struggles, so.
how much do you think social media contributes to that? Because I know how much I think social media contributes to that. I'd love to know how much you think social media contributes to that.
So I will say, before I started what I do, I would say about 85%, because I would have liked to have thought that there was a, a people understood a lot more. But now that I'm doing what I do and I see a lot more, I think I really believe social media is 100%, like, is the reason why people believe that. 100%.
Yeah, it's I I sometimes think about my kids. I think about my kids all the time, number one, but I think about what it's like for my kids growing up in this era of social media, and how I at that 15 or 18, how I would have dealt with the things that they're dealing with in this world of social media. My kids are pretty good with it. My older one's out of high school at this point, so he's not as bad as it is, and my younger one is pretty well grounded. But uh, and we did a fairly decent job of keeping them off of social media for a while until we absolutely had to let them use it. Um, and at that point, because I was against it for a long time, like you know, uh, I didn't quite get my kids still aren't on TikTok. I will not let them on TikTok. They use Instagram, they use Facebook, the other one uses Snapchat, and I was against Snapchat for a while too, because I just didn't really get it or like know what the difference was. Um, so when I learned more about Snapchat and what it was, we just told them you can't put anything on social media that you wouldn't say to somebody's face.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And and you're not it's not a shield, or it's not just an amorphous thing. It is living, breathing, and you can't put see there you go. You can't say or put anything on social media that you would not want to show to your grandmother.
Yes.
You, you know, uh, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and because it's out there, it's out
Mm-hmm.
there, and you can't pull it back. Snapchat. You may think it disappears. It doesn't disappear. You know, somebody wants to screenshot something that you put on there and said to somebody, they can screenshot it before it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been pretty good with it.
Yeah.
Uh, so we haven't, knock on wood, we haven't had an issue with it yet. But you have to understand that we told them social media is not real life. It's everybody's highlight reel, and
Yes.
you
I
know,
wish, I mean, again, now that I do what I do, I realize and I see a lot more, and I'm getting involved and seeing a lot of different things. But people who, aren't in, like, I don't think they understand a lot of how that works, and so they see a different side of it. And so a lot of people think what they're seeing is reality. Like, this is how people are living and this is what people are doing. And especially kids, especially kids. And it's like, guys, that's not real. Like, this is not what's really happening. You know what I mean? And Oh wow, it's sad.
I mean, even as adults, it's hard to be so inundated with it and not, you know, get jealous or uh, angry at something that you're seeing online, on social media. But and you're seeing people that are driving these cars and on this yacht, or eating in these restaurants that you're not eating in, or all these things, and it's it's it could get overwhelming, and it's a 100% a time suck, and I waste way more time on it than I ever want to. But and if I could take it off my phone, I would. But I got to use it for business purposes sometimes. Even LinkedIn is like that
Yes.
too. LinkedIn is just as much a social media site as anything else, and it's just as much of a time suck. And
Mm-hmm.
you still end up doom scrolling through LinkedIn. It's just for a different reason. Um, so anyway, I find it really. I always find it interesting talking to people about that uh, aspect of it, and uh, the effect these kids, especially with between COVID and social media, they're all fucked up. Any of these teenagers, they're all fucked up one way or the other. They don't, and they're all like this with their phones all the time, and they don't have any. My kids are really good in terms of social skills. They're above curve in being able to talk to people and actually have a conversation with people and not be in their phones all the time when we're in a social situation with other people. But there are a lot of kids where they just don't know how to actually have a conversation with somebody. They can't.
I
They can't, because of, number one, because of COVID. Number two, because of social media and their devices. Can't have a don't know how to have a conversation with even kids their own age. There,
And
so
just think what
it's.
that's doing to their mental health though. Like I get it. Like
Mhm,
I know there's going to be people who are like,
mhm,
well, how's that hurting them? What's that really? Like how is that hurting them, guys? Like let's think about this. Social skills, interacting with people, that is like you have to do that in life. Like that's like you have to do that when you go to a job interview, whether that is through the screen or face to face. You have to interact with people. You have to be able to communicate and talk to people and know how to do that. If you're just used to just being alone, how does that work on your mental health? Well, you're not meant to go through life alone. That's not what this like that's not what we're
mhm.
meant to do. And COVID showed us that when we all were isolated. You know what I mean? Like how did we all feel? How did that work on all of our mental health? So whew,
When we were in COVID and my kids were on Zoom school, and the teachers weren't requiring them to have their cameras on. And I walked in and I said, "You better turn your camera on." Uh, to my son, I said, "I don't care what the teacher says. I want your camera on, because I want you to actually see people and interact with people, and not be just a voice."
mhm,
And uh, and that made a difference. 100% made a difference. Said, if I come in
right,
here and I see
right,
that your camera's not on, you're going to be in trouble,
right,
for
right.
both of them. But a lot of teachers and a lot of parents didn't require that, and I thought that was a major mistake at the time.
I really do think when it comes to COVID and all of that went down, like a lot of things in life, I do think looking back, a lot of us learned a lot. And I would hope that we all learn things that we will never do again, and things that maybe we'll do different next time, if there ever is a next time. But yeah, I hope that everyone takes what happened during COVID and they learned a lot from that, and go forward with that. And maybe some people are still in the COVID air and wanted to stay there and just stay in that bubble. And that's perfectly fine because they feel safe in that. So that's they feel, so it's good. But whatever. 9 9/11 with WWE. Can you share just a little bit what that was like with WWE and how you guys like how was everyone's reaction? Were you guys in New York when that happened?
So, well, yeah, so we talk about, what happens when there are real life emergencies and real life situations when you're on the road, right? And how you handle that. Uh, and that's part of your mental health, right? And again, you have to have a certain mentality and a certain mindset and a certain uh, thick skin and be able to handle situations that are stressful while you're not with your family on the road. So 9/11 is the really the most extreme example of that, right? So at the time, my family was still in New York at that time. We're from New York originally. You couldn't tell by my accent. I'm born and bred in Queens. I live in Atlanta now, 17 years, but you can take, the boy out of New York, but you can't take the New York out of the boy ever. Uh, People ask me, well, no, you've been in Atlanta for 17 years. You're from Atlanta. I'm like, I'm 49 years old. I was spent 32 years in New York. I've been in Atlanta for 17. When that number shifts, maybe that you have a point, but no, for now, no. Yeah. So and our family's still all in New York, but we live down in Atlanta. But anyway, so at that time, my family was still all in New York. My wife worked in Midtown. My mother-in-law worked in Midtown in Manhattan. We, WWE, were in Texas. So we did a show in San Antonio, I think, for Monday Night Raw live. And then on Monday, which would have been the 10th, and we were traveling overnight, like I said before, to Houston to do our SmackDown taping on 9/11. So we get into town, we get a couple hours of sleep. I wake up in the morning in bed, and I turn on the TV and I turn on the Today Show, and we see the first plane hit the World Trade Center. And at that time, you're just waking up, and you're groggy, and you're saying to myself, I'm like, did I just see that? What just happened?
Yeah.
Right? And was that a dream? What happened? Right? And I get up, I go down to the hotel gym, and I'm getting a workout in, and I'm on the elliptical, and the second plane hits, and you're like, oh, this is real now. This is not. I'm awake. This is happening.
You're right. Yeah.
Uh, and at that time, so it's 2001, right? And cell phones are just becoming a thing, really. And so I try to call my wife, and all cell phone service is down. And there are no flights going anywhere. And so now my wife and my family are all in New York, and I'm in Texas. And at that point, we don't know what's happening in the world. We don't know if we're having a show that night. We don't know anything. So we get dressed, we go to the arena, or I'm sorry, no, I go downstairs to the lobby of the hotel, and everybody's gathered down there because nobody knows what's happening. You're talking crew, you're talking wrestlers, you're talking production people. Everybody's waiting in the hotel. We don't know what's happening. So we find out that all air traffic is down, all cell phone service is down, uh, and everything is on hold. So right now we're trying to figure out at that point what's happening with our show. We find out that our show that night is canceled, and we're in a holding pattern. Are we going to do the show live on Thursday, at that time because SmackDown was airing on Thursday. Are we going to cancel the show? Are we going to go home? You know, at that point, and there are no flights going anywhere, so we're just stuck. So later on in the day, we find out that yes, we're going to do the show live on Thursday night in Houston at the same arena, and all the tickets that were sold for Tuesday night are now going to be transferred over to Thursday night. And at that point, WWE was going to be the first live mass gathering of any kind post 9/11. So Major League Baseball had not started back up yet. Any other sporting events, anything else. We were going to be the first mass gathering after 9/11. And that's at that point, that's still scary because we don't know if they're going to be other cities hit at this point. We don't know from anything at this point, right? Um, and we're stuck, in Houston, and my family's still in New York. So uh, it takes, from what I can remember, I can't remember getting a hold of them that day at all.
Oh, wow.
And once we finally found out, when once cell phone service or phone service was back up, I found out that my wife had basically hitchhiked from from Manhattan back to our house in Westchester County. Got a ride, and they traveled like a bunch of them together, walked like over the bridge and basically got home out of Manhattan by any means necessary. That everybody was okay, and because World Trade Center's all the way downtown. My family worked in Midtown, but everybody was okay. They got out of Manhattan, and now we're doing this show live on Thursday. And we had determined, WWE had determined at the time that the show was just going to be a tribute show.
Mhm.
So it was just going to be, matches for entertainment purposes only, not storyline related. And we were going to take testimonials from all the talent, the wrestlers, about how they felt about 9/11.
Oh,
And so the shows, we open up the doors, and mind you, we're sold out on Tuesday night, but we have no clue if anybody's actually going to show up to this show on Thursday or not. If people are going to be afraid, if there's their security reasons, or we hadn't gotten, at that point, to my recollection, we had not gotten any intel from local authorities or the FBI or uh, in law enforcement that there was any reason not to have the show. And I probably would have been in the loop about hearing those types of things at that time. So, from a law enforcement safety perspective, I can't remember that there was an issue with us having the show at that time. But so we opened up the doors and let people in, and everybody showed. So the place was packed, and they had American flags, and the military was in uniform, and uh, it was emotional to say the least. And to start the show, Vince McMahon, who was the owner of WWE at the time, gets in the ring and he does this monologue that was so impassioned and so emotional about, we're Americans. I think I'm getting choked up talking about it even now, remembering it. Uh, we're Americans and we don't back down from terrorism, and we're gonna rise above this. And if we joke that if Vince had ran for president the next day after that speech, he would have won. It was so great and emotional. You can go look it up on YouTube. It's there. And our ring announcer at the time, Lillian Garcia, was also a singer, and she sang the national anthem. And it was just one of the most emotional, cathartic renderings of the national anthem that I had ever heard. And I can remember myself personally, I'm standing on during the show, my job is to communicate anything that's happening on the floor to our TV truck and be kind of like the floor general, the eyes and ears, right? And I'm standing right underneath our camera location, looking right at her on the floor, and I'm just bawling my eyes out. And everybody in the crowd was just in tears from this rendering of the national anthem, and just the pride and uh, the release and the therapeutic nature of that show. And that's something that only WWE could have done at the time. And it's you take pride in that, and that's part of what drives you to keep doing what you're doing in those situations, and living that life, and because you're proud, not uh, it's a prideful moment that you're part of this, you know, ability to give these people this release and this entertainment in this time of need for them.
Yeah.
So, uh, and that's, from the mental health perspective for those of us, that are on the crew. Yeah, we're dealing with stuff and we're worried about our own families, and we're, I'm trying to figure out how I'm getting back to New York even after this show, because I got into a car and drove from Houston to New York overnight to get back after that show. But in the moment, it's therapeutic for everybody.
Mhm.
Uh, so, and that's what keeps you going in those hard times when you're on the road and you're tired and you're traveling and you're feeling like shit. And I try to remember those really, really great moments that you get in that situation. And then that goes for, and not just WWE, it goes for anyone of, the person that's working on the Beyonce tour is, is feeling the same thing, or the person that works for the Savannah Bananas, or works for whatever team, uh to be able to, you know to say that you are in a living, providing entertainment and release and therapy sometimes for people to escape what their day-to-day life really is it's a blessing.
Yeah. Um, Maybe you might be able to speak on this. I'm not really sure, but um, I remember when I was younger. No, I guess I wasn't really young, but there was a wrestler who I had killed himself, I believe. Um, how did I mean, or how did that come through to the WWE? And how did you guys process that with everyone? And how did that go moving forward?
So you're referring to Chris Benoit, who was a WWE wrestler who uh, had an incident where he uh, killed his wife and his young son, and then took his own life. Um, right. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Was there? Did we know? Not we, but did you guys know like there was issues prior to that, or was this just a shock to everyone? And how did that get back to you guys, and what did we do going forward?
So the short answer to that is no. None of us that I knew him obviously in a professional sense and had, some interaction with him. Obviously, there were people that had a much deeper interaction with him. But to my knowledge, there was no sign of anything that was, you know, uh, that would cause anything like this. So um, the way the story goes is we're getting ready to do a show in Corpus Christi, Texas. And it comes, they can't find, he doesn't show up. They can't find him. They can't get a hold of him on his phone. And he lives in Atlanta at the time. And uh, they send, police go to his house and they find him and his wife, Nancy, and his young son, Daniel, I think was his name, uh, deceased in the house. And we don't know anything of what's happened. So at that point, from the WWE perspective, we get word of this, and not knowing the full extent to what had happened, uh, we don't cancel the show that night. The show becomes a tribute show to him,
Okay.
right? And um, it's very similar to the 9/11 scenario. They have matches just to kind of, have some entertainment, but and the guys start recording testimonials about him. It wasn't until the next day that we had gotten the full uh, story about what had happened. That he killed the two of them and then took his own life. And obviously, the company's reaction at that point changes because it's not a tribute anymore. It's a uh, and so um, hindsight being 2020. Obviously, if the company would have known at the time what had happened, there would have not been a tribute show. It would have been a regular show
Right.
or no show at all. But at that point, obviously, we didn't know. So, uh, and the company went under a lot of scrutiny because it had come to light that Chris had had CTE and had, concussion syndrome, and that potentially it would have caused him to uh, do what he did. And because of that, the company took a much stronger stance on concussion protocol and the health and safety of the talent after that. So you'd stop seeing, guys getting hit in the head with chairs, and they changed, they wouldn't do some moves that were potentially more dangerous and could potentially cause more concussions at that point. And um, just an overall more awareness of concussion protocol after that.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a big blow and shock to everyone, you know.
And to even more go into it, like I've talked for the last hour about the familial nature of the company and how everybody knew everybody, and it was very much a family atmosphere on the road. You know, those of us that were on the road, you get to know the talent and you get to know their wives and their kids and their families. So when, and part of my job was always to help take care of the families and uh, provide, so, if they needed something when they came to our shows. So yeah, I knew his wife and I knew his son and I knew him obviously. So and So yeah, so you're dealing with this in real time as it's happening. Um, so yeah, so if you're around long enough, you get to know these guys and their wives and their kids and their families, and it's a major. It's part of the really great things about that atmosphere because everybody is so close and so tight, but it's also bad in these situations as well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's happened more times than you want it to. That uh, you have talent that either have passed away on the road or have had something happen to them where we had to pivot and do these types of shows and scenarios.
Um, can you share with everyone what it is that you are doing now?
I would
Since
love
you,
to. uh, in my post WWE career, I have started my own uh, live event and broadcast consulting business. Yeah, I decided at that point that after 26 years of working for somebody, I wanted to work for myself and, and take that leap. It's scary and it's uncomfortable. But, again, I feel to grow as a human being, we need to do scary shit sometimes and we need to face our fears and get comfortable being uncomfortable.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you know, so my wife and I were big CrossFitters for a while, and that's a big tenet of CrossFitting is be comfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I started cold plunging for that same reason. You know, I
Cold plunge, yeah.
and you sit in a cold plunge for 5 minutes, and you have to learn really quickly how to be comfortable being uncomfortable because your first reaction is damn, it's cold. Get the hell out of here. And uh, so uh, you have to face your fears sometimes and keep pushing forward. And so, yeah, I've started my own live event and broadcast consulting business. I'm currently working with a concert promoter called US Concert Agency on the first ever concerts at the Field of Dreams movie site in Iowa, where they actually filmed the Field of Dreams movie, the first ever concerts they're doing there. So again, uh, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, doing the first, facing your fears and being the first to do something and jumping in with both feet sometimes.
So
Uh,
exciting. So exciting.
so yeah, August 30th, headlined by Tim McGraw. August 31st, headlined by Nickelback. And tickets are still available. So if you're in the Dyersville, Iowa area, or you want to make the trip to the Field of Dreams, which is a big, big tourist attraction. If you're in that area, tickets are still
Yeah.
available. So come and join
Tim
us.
McGraw.
It's going to be awesome. Like it's going to be. I've never been to the Field of Dreams, and when I first was approached with this, this is a no-brainer. Let's go. To do the first ever concert at this iconic location, 20,000 people.
Wow.
Again, it's the same thing. It's your job is to put on this show that people are going to remember for the rest of their lives, and it's going to be we're gonna do all this work, and then the showtime, I always try to take a step back and take a look around, at number one, absorb the accomplishment that you just accomplished. Take a minute and just accomplish, take a minute and try to appreciate what you just accomplished. And I used to do this at WrestleMania every year. We would have 80,000 people in a football stadium for WrestleMania every year. That's the biggest show of the year for WWE. That's the WWE Super Bowl, if you're for the uninitiated. Uh, and we would be on site for a week, and it would be long days and a lot of work. And you get into the show and you see these people, and they're just having a blast. And you see the fathers with their sons, and the mothers with their daughters, and the families and the couples. And I can't tell you how many times over the course of my 25 years with WWE, where I had people proposing in the crowd, you know, and you have whatever special event, and you have make-a-wishes, every day. And it's just kids dying wishes to meet John Cena,
Oh
and
yeah.
And your John Cena, by the way, is the record holder for Make-A-Wishes. He's done
Really?
like over 600 Make-A-Wishes. Like he's nobody even comes close. Uh, so, uh, and you see these kids and their families who their wish is to come to a WWE show and meet John Cena or meet whatever WWE superstar at the time, and you're part of that. And and you take a step back and you look and you try to appreciate what you just accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be able to do that. I miss that's the one of the one things I miss about not being at live events for over a year now. Is that feeling of being in the crowd, being with that energy, and being able to, like I said, take a step back and look around you and say, that family's having a great time. These kids are gonna remember this for the rest of their life. And you take pride in that. That's part of what that's part of what keeps you going again. That your job is to do this for people. You get
Right.
paid for it. I'm getting paid for this. I was, and I have a pretty good life
Yeah.
because of this. They paying me a decent amount of money to be able
Yeah.
to do this all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
And you get to go to whatever city you're in, and you get to go to Australia and Japan and Europe and Saudi Arabia and Mexico, and you get to see the world, and you get to have these experiences in every country. It's universal. It doesn't matter what country you're in. You're going to have the same experience of the same family, not the same family, but family, the families
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
experiencing this together
Yeah.
because it transcends language and culture,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and you're getting paid for that. They're going to pay me. They're going to pay me for this.
Mm-hmm.
So uh,
That would be amazing. I mean, yeah, to have a job like that, to just put smiles on people's faces, and that's what you get paid to do. That's nice.
and yeah, it's a blessing, and I miss it, and I'm looking forward to having that again.
Well, I am super excited that you have been able to, step into another field that you love, and to continue to put smiles on people's faces. And I'm really excited for that Tim McGraw concert for you. Um, very jealous as well, but I'm happy for you.
Oh, you come on out. You're not that far. You said you're in Grand Rapids. It's not that far.
Yeah, um, I might have to do that. Tim McGraw, Tim McGraw for the
You know how to get a hold of me. We'll take care of you.
Tim McGraw. Yeah. I just went a little side note here. When he got married, I was heartbroken, very heartbroken. Anyways, oh gosh, okay. Um, yeah. Congratulations, though. I want to tell you that talking with you, and I talked with you prior to this, a couple days ago, but you are definitely just a very fun person. And just your perspective on life, and just who you are is just amazing. Like I really do adore you, and I love talking to you. Our conversations are always fun, and they always go so long. And it's just I feel like I could just talk to you forever. And you just are just full of knowledge, and yeah. It's just fun talking to you, and I really appreciate you coming on the show, and sharing these stories, and sharing your thoughts, and how you handled situations. And you know, you are going to do some more great work out there. And yeah, congratulations again on your new work. And again, looking forward to building our wonderful relationship more, and seeing all the stuff you do.
And I do believe that relationships are the key to any success in life.
Yes.
So please feel free to put up my LinkedIn address, and or and you can get to my company, Steve Rubin Consulting, from there. Uh, and I'm more than happy to connect and talk with anybody all the time, because I believe that relationships are so incredibly important in life.
I agree.
And you're never too busy to talk to somebody. And if somebody wants to talk to me, then I want to talk to them. Uh,
And I know you
so
truly mean that. I know you do. That's what I love about you. And my friends and stuff, I've said that to them. I'm like, he truly is like a friendly, down to earth, fun person to talk to. Just
it may take
just
me like a couple of weeks to get to you, but I'll
right.
get to you eventually. Uh, you know, but but and unfortunately, that part of my layoff has been that's one of the good things about what has happened to me in terms of my layoff, because you didn't have uh, time. I just never had time to do the networking or connecting or really talking to people, because you're on the road all the time and
Yeah.
you're just going from one place to the next. So now that I have the time, and you have to, yeah, okay, part of my business is networking and trying to connect and monetize my network of people, but you don't realize how big your network is until you actually have to use it. And
Right.
then
Yes.
and it's been a happy accident, so to speak, that I get to now sit and have all these Zoom calls and all these uh, consulting calls. I tell my wife, I said I've had more Zoom calls in the last year than I had in the last 20 plus years of connecting with people, because you have to, number one, in order to try to connect and try to build a business. But I genuinely enjoy it. Like,
Yeah.
and part of it is also people will reach out to me, young kids. Here I go sounding ancient. Young kids like just coming out of college are looking for looking for advice. Especially with WWE, everybody wants to. You know, you have a whole generation of kids that grew up watching WWE that want to now work for WWE, and uh, they reach out to all of us, and they're like, how do I get into WWE? And for years I just ignored those messages because I just didn't have time and didn't have the energy, or if I had the physical energy, I didn't have the mental energy to deal with that. But now uh it's been a great pleasure now to sit and take a half an hour with somebody and say, listen, hey, I'm an open book. Come, you book some time with me on my calendar and come to me with questions, and I'll answer them, and I'll give you my advice, and I'll give you my years of experience. I'm not going to say wisdom because I'm not really a lot smart,
I feel like you are. I
but
really
but I'll give you my experience. And that's the worst is you don't book my time and then don't come to me with good questions. I said, just come to me with good questions and I'll answer them. But
you're
if you're going to come on a call with me and not have questions ready, then I'm not going to drag the interview. I'm not going to drag the call out and try to get information out of you.
I agree. I had that once, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, you wanted to talk to me, but what do you want to talk about? Like,
Right.
what are we talking about?
Yeah, I will give anybody the time. Just make sure you're prepared.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, I definitely do appreciate your time. And I will make sure my team gets your information put up underneath the show. And of course, we'll be speaking again. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the show. And we will be, yeah, again, thank you. And yeah, I will look forward to talking to everyone tomorrow.